The glass walls of the 47th floor office vibrated with the hum of Seattle's skyline. But all I could hear was the smug cadence of Caleb Warner's voice. He was presenting his case strategy to the senior partners. His golden hair, catching the light like he was some damn deity, descended into our law firm. I hated the way he waltzed into Sterling and Pratt 6 months ago and became the golden boy overnight. Elliot Hayes, was the one who'd clawed my way up from a nowhere town in Ohio, working nights at a diner to afford law school. I'd earned my place here through sweat and sleepless nights, not charm and a Harvard pedigree like Caleb. Yet there he was, stealing the spotlight in a meeting I'd prepped for weeks. His perfect smile convincing everyone his ideas were better than mine. My fists clenched under the table as he flashed that grin, the one that made my blood boil and my stomach twist in ways I refused to examine. Elliot. Thoughts? MS. Sterling's voice snapped me back. All eyes turned to me, including Caleb's, his blue gaze sharp enough to cut through my defenses. I cleared my throat, forcing my voice steady. Caleb's approach is ambitious, but it overlooks the precedent set in the 2018 Carter case. We'd be risking the client's entire defense on untested grounds. My words were clipped. Professional. But inside, I was screaming, "Stop acting like you own this place." Caleb tilted his head, that infuriating smirk playing on his lips. Precedent is a guide, Elliot, not a cage. Sometimes you have to take risks to win. The room nodded along, eating up his charisma like it was gospel. I wanted to throw my coffee mug at him. Instead, I forced a tight smile and said, "Risks lose cases, Caleb. Precision wins them." The meeting dragged on, but the tension between us crackled like static. By the time it ended, I was itching to escape to my office, to bury myself in case files and forget Caleb's existence. But as I gathered my notes, he lingered by the door, his broad shoulders blocking my path. "You really don't like me, do you?" he said, his voice low, almost teasing. I froze, my pulse spiking. "I don't have time for games, Warner," I shot back, brushing past him. His cologne, something crisp and expensive, hit me like a punch, and I hated how it lingered in my head. That night, I stayed late, the office quiet except for the hum of my laptop. I was drafting a motion for the Peterson case, determined to outshine Caleb's reckless flair with my meticulous work. Around 10 p.m., the door creaked open, and there he was, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking unfairly good under the fluorescent lights. "Still grinding, Hayes?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. I didn't look up. Some of us don't rely on charm to get ahead. He laughed, a sound that was too warm, too disarming. "You think I'm all charm? That's cute." He stepped closer, and I felt the air shift, like the room was suddenly too small. "Maybe if you loosened up, you'd see I'm not the enemy." I glared at him, my jaw tight. "I don't need your advice, Caleb. I need you to stay out of my way." His eyes narrowed, but there was something else in them, something that made my chest tighten. He didn't argue, just nodded and left. I told myself I was relieved, but the truth was, his absence left the room feeling emptier. I shook it off, diving back into my work. But his words echoed, "Not the enemy." Yeah, right. The next week was a blur of depositions and late nights. Caleb and I were assigned to the same case. A high-profile corporate lawsuit that could make or break our careers. We were supposed to collaborate, but every meeting turned into a battlefield. He pushed for bold moves. I demanded caution. Our arguments were sharp, public, and left the team whispering about our rivalry. I didn't care what they thought, I cared about winning. But every time Caleb leaned across the conference table, his voice low and intense, I caught myself noticing things I shouldn't. The way his hands moved when he talked. The faint scar above his eyebrow. The way his eyes locked onto mine like he could see through me. One evening, after another heated debate, I stormed into the file room to grab a document. Caleb followed. Because of course he did. "You're impossible," I snapped, yanking a folder from the shelf. "You act like this case is a game." He stepped closer. Too close. His voice dropping. "And you act like you've got something to prove to everyone. What's your deal? Elliot, why do you hate me so much?" I spun to face him, ready to fire back, but the words died in my throat. He was inches away, his gaze pinning me in place. The air felt electric. Dangerous. I started. But he cut me off, his hand brushing my arm as he leaned in. "Don't lie," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You feel this too." My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to shove him away, to tell him he was wrong. But my body betrayed me, frozen under his stare. Then, in one fluid motion, he pinned me against the wall, his hands on either side of me, and kissed me. It was fierce, desperate, like he'd been holding back as long as I had. My mind screamed to push him away, but my hands were already in his hair, pulling him closer. The world tilted, and for a moment, nothing else existed. When he pulled back, his breathing was ragged, his eyes searching mine. "Tell me you didn't feel that," he whispered. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare, my walls crumbling, my hatred unraveling. What the hell had just happened? I stumbled out of the file room, my lips still burning from Caleb's kiss, my head a war zone of panic and want. The office was dark, the city lights outside mocking my disarray with their steady glow. I grabbed my coat and fled, the elevator ride down feeling like a descent into chaos. The next morning, I avoided the firm's coffee machine, knowing Caleb would be there. All easy smiles and effortless charm. I couldn't face him not after last night. Not after I'd kissed him back like my life depended on it. I buried myself in case law, pretending the Peterson file was the only thing that mattered. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the intensity in his gaze, the heat of his hands bracketing me against the wall. I hated how my body reacted to the memory, how it betrayed the walls I'd built around myself. By noon, I couldn't avoid him any longer. We had a team meeting, and Caleb walked in, looking infuriatingly composed in his navy suit. His eyes found mine, and for a split second, something raw flickered in them, something that said he hadn't forgotten either. I looked away, my face hot, and focused on my notes like they were a lifeline. MS. Sterling assigned us to present our joint strategy to the client tomorrow, which meant we had to work together. Alone. After the meeting, Caleb caught me in the hallway. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low but firm. I wanted to bolt, but I nodded, following him to a quiet conference room. The door clicked shut, and the air felt too thick, Too charged. About last night, he started. But I cut him off. It was a mistake. We were tired. Stressed. It didn't mean anything. My voice was sharp. But inside, I was unraveling. Caleb's jaw tightened. And he stepped closer. His presence overwhelming. Don't do that. Elliot. Don't pretend it was nothing. You kissed me back. I flinched. The truth stinging. I don't know what you want from me. I snapped. You're the golden boy. You've got everything. Why mess with me? His eyes softened. And for the first time, I saw a crack in his perfect facade. Because you're the only one who sees me, he said quietly. Not the Harvard degree. Not the charm. You see me. His words hit like a freight train. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the sincerity in his voice stopped me cold. I'd spent months hating him. But had I ever really seen him? Or had I just seen the threat he posed to my carefully controlled world? We spent the rest of the day working on the presentation. Our arguments quieter now, laced with something unspoken. Every brush of his hand against mine as we passed documents felt like a spark. By evening, we were alone again, the office emptying out. He looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. Elliot, I'm not sorry about last night. And I don't think you are either. I wanted to deny it, to rebuild my walls. But the truth was clawing its way out. I'd spent years hiding who I was. Small town Ohio wasn't kind to guys like me. Law school. This job. This city, they were supposed to be my fresh start. But I'd carried the fear with me. Caleb was different. He was out. Unapologetic. Living his truth in a way I'd never dared. And that kiss, it had cracked something open inside me. I can't do this, I said finally, my voice breaking. Not here. Not with you. He didn't push. Just nodded, his eyes holding mine. When you're ready, I'll be here, he said. Then he left. And I sat there, alone, wondering why his absence felt like a loss. The client meeting the next day was a success. Our strategy seamless despite the undercurrent between us. But afterward, Caleb cornered me in the break room. We're good together, Elliot, he said, his voice steady. Not just at work. You know that. I wanted to argue, but the memory of his lips on mine silenced me. For the first time, I let myself imagine what it would be like to stop fighting, to let him in. It terrified me and it thrilled me. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Caleb and I were thrown together on more cases. Our desks piled high with files. Our nights stretching long into the Seattle dark. Every interaction was a dance, sharp words masking the heat that simmered beneath. I told myself I could keep it professional, keep him at arm's length. But every glance, every accidental touch, chipped away at my resolve. One night, after a grueling day in court, we ended up at a dive bar near the firm. The team had dragged us along, and I couldn't say no without raising eyebrows. Caleb sat across from me, his laugh easy as he traded stories with the others. I hated how he fit in so effortlessly, how he made everyone feel seen. But when his eyes met mine over the rim of his beer, I felt it again, that pull, like gravity, drawing me toward him. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing air, needing space. When I came out, Caleb was waiting in the dim hallway, his expression unreadable. You're avoiding me, he said, stepping closer. I shook my head, but my voice betrayed me. I'm trying to keep this under control. He tilted his head, studying me. What are you so afraid of, Elliot? The question hit too close. I thought of my parents' cold silence when I came out at 17. The whispers in my hometown. The years I'd spent building a life where no one could hurt me again. You wouldn't understand, I said, my voice raw. Caleb's hand grazed my wrist. Gentle but firm. Try me. I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd learned to hide, to survive by being invisible. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I pulled away and left the bar, the cool night air stinging my face. Back at my apartment, I paced, replaying his touch, his question. Why was it so hard to let him in? At work, the tension grew unbearable. We were prepping for a major deposition, and our arguments turned personal. You're so damn stubborn, Caleb snapped during a late-night session, tossing a file onto the table. You think you're the only one who's ever struggled. I froze, caught off guard. What's that supposed to mean? I demanded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You think I haven't fought for this? For who I am. You're not the only one with scars, Elliot. His words hung between us, heavy with truth. For the first time, I saw the weight behind his confidence, the battles he didn't flaunt. I wanted to ask, to know more, but pride kept me silent. Instead, we worked until dawn, our silence more intimate than any argument. The deposition was a high-wire act, but we nailed it. Our synergy undeniable. Afterward, the team celebrated, but I slipped away to the rooftop deck, needing solitude. Caleb found me. Of course. He stood beside me, the city sprawling below us, and said, You're not alone in this. You know. I looked at him, his face soft in the moonlight, and something in me broke. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. How to be open. He didn't push, just stood there, his presence steady. You don't have to have it all figured out, he said. Just don't shut me out. For the first time, I didn't want to. I reached for his hand, tentative, and when his fingers closed around mine, it felt like a lifeline. Holding Caleb's hand on that rooftop felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Part of me wanted to jump. Part of me wanted to run. But his grip was steady, grounding. And for once, I didn't pull away. We stood there, the Seattle skyline glittering below, and I let myself feel the weight of his presence without fighting it. The next day, I was a mess. Every email I sent was laced with typos. Every thought hijacked by the memory of his hand in mine. Caleb, of course, was his usual polished self, charming the partners while I fumbled through a status meeting. When he caught my eye across the room, his smile was soft, private, and it sent my pulse into overdrive. I hated how he could unravel me with a look. We were assigned to a new case, a pro bono project defending a local LGBTQ+ youth center against a discriminatory lawsuit. The irony wasn't lost on me. Working side by side with Caleb on something that hit so close to home felt like peeling back my armor in public. During our first meeting with the center's director, Caleb was all warmth, asking questions that showed he cared. I stayed quiet, my notes a shield, but his passion for the cause stirred something in me. He wasn't just playing a part that believed in this. Afterward, we grabbed coffee to debrief. The cafe was cozy, tucked away from the firm's glass and steel world. Caleb leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You were quiet today," he said. "This case getting to you?" I sipped my coffee, avoiding his gaze. "It's just work." I lied. He didn't buy it. "Elliot, you don't have to hide from me. Not about this." I wanted to snap, to tell him he didn't know me. But the truth was, he was starting to. I set my cup down, my voice low. I grew up in a place where being out wasn't an option. "This, Casey, it's personal." Caleb's expression softened, and he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. "It's personal for me too," he said. "My brother, he didn't make it out of a town like that." The admission hit me hard. I'd never asked about his life, too busy hating him to care. Now, I saw the pain behind his confidence, the loss he carried. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. He squeezed my hand, and for a moment, we were just two people, raw and real, no walls between us. Back at the firm, the case consumed us. We spent late nights researching, drafting arguments, our desks littered with coffee cups and highlighters. Caleb's humor kept me sane as stupid impressions of the opposing counsel made me laugh until my sides hurt. But the closer we got, the more I wrestled with what it meant. I wasn't ready to be out at work, not when I'd spent years keeping my personal life locked away. Caleb, though, was fearless, his pride flag pinned glinting on his lapel like a badge of honor. One night, as we worked alone in the conference room, he caught me staring at that pin. "You ever think about it?" he asked. "Being out here." My throat tightened. "I think about losing everything I've worked for," I said. He nodded, no judgment in his eyes. "It's not easy," he said. "But hiding who you are, it's a different kind of loss." His words stayed with me, gnawing at the edges of my fear. I didn't have an answer. But when he kissed me goodnight in the empty office, soft and unhurried, I didn't pull away. It felt like a promise, one I wasn't sure I could keep. The youth center case became our world, a battle that felt bigger than any corporate lawsuit. Every argument we crafted, every witness we prepped, carried the weight of kids who needed a safe place to be themselves. Caleb threw himself into it with a fire I hadn't seen before, and I couldn't help but admire him. But admiration was dangerous. It pulled me closer to a line I wasn't ready to cross. At home, alone in my tiny apartment, I replayed our moments, the rooftop, the coffee shop, the kisses that left me dizzy. I'd spent so long guarding my heart, but Caleb was slipping through the cracks. Still, fear clung to me like damp air. What if the firm found out? What if my colleagues, my mentors, saw me differently? I'd fought too hard to risk it all. One afternoon, we visited the youth center to meet the kids. They were vibrant, defiant, their stories echoing the parts of myself I'd buried. One teenager, Jamie, told us about getting kicked out of their house for being non-binary. Caleb listened, his hand resting lightly on Jamie's shoulder. His empathy so raw it hurt to watch. I stayed back, my throat tight, remembering my own exile from home. When we left, Caleb was quiet. His usual spark dimmed. "You okay?" I asked, surprising myself. He nodded, but his voice was heavy. I just keep thinking about my brother. He needed a place like this. That night, we ended up at my place, too exhausted to keep working. Caleb sprawled on my couch, a beer in hand, his tie discarded. Tell me about him, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Caleb's eyes met mine, and for once, he didn't deflect. He told me about Ethan, his older brother, who'd been outed in their conservative hometown and spiraled into addiction. I couldn't save him, Caleb said, his voice breaking. But I can fight for those kids. I moved closer, my hand finding his. You're doing that, I said. You're fighting. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and then he kissed me, slow and deep, like he was pouring everything into it. I let myself fall into it, my fears drowned out by the warmth of him. At work, the pressure mounted. The opposing counsel was ruthless, digging up technicalities to discredit the center. Caleb and I worked around the clock, our partnership seamless despite the stakes. But the closer we got, the harder it was to hide. A lingering glance in a meeting, a brush of hands in the hallway, small moments that felt like shouting our secret to the world. One day, Ms. Sterling called us into her office. You two are doing exceptional work, she said, her gaze sharp. But I've noticed tension. Anything I should know? My heart stopped. But Caleb was calm, his voice steady, just passionate about the case. Ma'am. She nodded, but her eyes lingered, and I felt exposed, like she could see right through me. Later, alone in the copy room, I confronted him. What if she knows? I hissed. Caleb's expression softened. Then we deal with it. Together. His certainty was a lifeline, but it also terrified me. I wasn't ready to be together in front of the world. Not yet. The trial was a week away, and the firm was a pressure cooker. Caleb and I were a united front in the courtroom prep. But behind closed doors, our connection was a tangle of stolen moments and unspoken fears. Every kiss felt like a rebellion against the life I'd built. Every touch a step toward a truth I wasn't sure I could face. One night, we stayed late. The office silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Caleb was at my desk, pointing out a flaw in my closing argument. His voice gentle but firm. You're overcomplicating it, he said, leaning over my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. I turned, our faces inches apart, and the world narrowed to the space between us. You're distracting me, I muttered, but I didn't move away. He smiled, that slow, dangerous smile, and kissed me, his hands framing my face like I was something precious. We pulled apart at the sound of footsteps, my heart pounding as a janitor passed by. Caleb laughed softly, but I was shaken. We can't keep doing this here, I said, my voice tight. He nodded, his expression serious. Then come to my place tomorrow. No work, no walls. Just us. I hesitated, the invitation both thrilling and terrifying. But I nodded, unable to say no to him anymore. His apartment was a surprise warm, cluttered with books and vinyl records. Not the sterile bachelor pad I'd expected. We cooked dinner, laughing as we burned the pasta. And for a few hours, I forgot the world outside. Over wine. He told me about his dreams leaving corporate law someday. starting a nonprofit for queer youth. His passion was infectious, and I found myself sharing my own buried hopes, writing a book. Maybe. About growing up invisible. He listened. Really listened. And when he kissed me that night, it felt like coming home. But reality crashed in the next morning. A colleague, Rachel, cornered me at the firm. "People are talking. Elliot," she said, her voice low. "You and Caleburi not exactly subtle." My stomach dropped. "There's nothing to talk about." I lied. But her skeptical look said she didn't believe me. I spent the day paranoid, analyzing every glance, every whisper. By the time I saw Caleb, I was a wreck. "We need to be more careful," I told him, my voice sharp. He frowned, hurt flickering in his eyes. "Or we could stop hiding," he said. "I'm not ashamed of us." His words cut deep. I wasn't ashamed either, not of him, not of what we had, but the fear of losing my career. My place in this world I'd fought for was a weight I couldn't shake. "I need time," I said, hating how weak it sounded. Caleb nodded, but the distance between us felt wider than ever. The trial loomed, and we threw ourselves into prep, our personal tension buried under the weight of the case. The youth center's future hung in the balance, and every argument we crafted felt like a fight for our own truths. Caleb was relentless, his belief in the cause unshakable, and I found myself leaning on his strength, even as I pushed him away. The courtroom was a battlefield, the air thick with tension as the trial began. Caleb and I sat side by side, our notes meticulously prepared, our faces masks of professionalism. But beneath the table, his knee brushed mine, a quiet anchor in the storm. The opposing counsel was brutal, painting the youth center as a radical agenda threatening community values. Every word was a punch, and I saw Caleb's jaw tighten, his eyes blazing with defiance. Our opening statement was a duet, my precision balancing Caleb's passion. The judge listened intently, and for the first time, I felt the power of our partnership not just as lawyers, but as two people fighting for something bigger. When we called Jamie to the stand, their testimony about finding a home at the center brought tears to my eyes. I glanced at Caleb, and his hand found mine under the table, a fleeting squeeze that said we were in this together. But outside the courtroom, the whispers grew louder. A partner pulled me aside, his tone clipped. "Elliot, your focus is slipping. Don't let personal matters interfere." My heart sank. I nodded, promising to stay professional, but the warning felt like a noose. That night, I told Caleb, my voice shaking, "They know something's up. We can't keep doing this." He looked at me, his expression raw. "I'm not going to pretend I don't love you," he said, the word love hitting me like a tidal wave. I froze, my heart pounding. Love. I hadn't let myself name it, but there it was, undeniable. "Caleb." I started, but the words caught in my throat. He stepped closer, his voice soft. "You don't have to say it back. But I'm not hiding anymore. I can't." I wanted to tell him I felt it too, but fear choked me. Instead, I kissed him, hard and desperate, like it could hold us together. The trial stretched on, each day a grueling test of our skills and resolve. We were winning, but the cost was mounting. Rumors spread through the firm, and I caught colleagues staring, Their whispers a constant hum. I started pulling back, keeping Caleb at a distance, my fear outweighing my want. He noticed. Of course. His eyes shadowed with hurt. "You're shutting me out again," he said one night, his voice low. I didn't deny it. I couldn't. The final day of the trial was electric. Caleb's closing argument was a masterpiece, his voice ringing with conviction as he spoke about the kids who needed the center, about the right to be who you are. I followed, my words sharp and grounded, tying every legal thread together. When the judge ruled in our favor, the courtroom erupted, and Caleb grabbed my hand, his smile brighter than the sun. We'd done it, saved the center, given those kids a future. But as we left the courthouse, a reporter approached, her recorder gleaming. "Mr. Hayes. Mr. Warner. There are rumors about your relationship. Care to comment?" My blood ran cold. Caleb opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "No comment," I snapped, pulling away. His face fell, and in that moment, I knew I'd broken something precious. The victory should have been sweet, but it tasted like ash. Caleb and I returned to the firm as heroes, the partners showering us with praise. But the space between us was a chasm. I'd pushed him away in front of that reporter, and the hurt in his eyes haunted me. I wanted to fix it, to tell him I was sorry. But every time I opened my mouth, fear stopped me cold. Days passed in a blur of congratulations and new assignments. But Caleb was distant. His smile's polite, his touch is absent. I missed the warmth of his laugh, the spark of his presence. At night, alone in my apartment, I replayed every moment, the kiss in the file room, the rooftop, the way he'd said he loved me. I'd been so afraid of losing my place in the world that I'd lost him instead. One evening, I found him in the office, packing up his desk. My heart stopped. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't look at me. "I got an offer from a nonprofit in Portland. They work with queer youth. I'm taking it." I felt like I'd been punched. "You're leaving?" He nodded, his jaw tight. "I can't stay here, Elliot. Not when you're not ready." I wanted to beg him to stay, to tell him I was ready. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I watched him walk out, the door closing with a finality that broke me. For the first time, I let myself cry, the weight of my choices crushing me. I'd fought so hard to protect my life. But what was it worth without him? The next week was torture. The firm felt empty without Caleb's voice, his laugh, his infuriating confidence. I threw myself into work, but it was hollow. One night, I went to the youth center, needing to remember why we'd fought so hard. Jamie was there, their smile bright as they showed me a mural they'd painted, a rainbow bursting across the wall. "You and Caleb saved this place," they said. "You gave us a home." I nodded, my throat tight. But all I could think was how I'd lost mine. I couldn't let him go. I found his new address in Portland and drove through the night, my heart pounding with every mile. When he opened his door, his eyes widened, hope and hurt warring in them. "Elliot." "What?" I didn't let him finish. I kissed him, pouring everything into it, me fear, my love, my regret. When I pulled back, I was trembling. "I'm done hiding," I said. "I love you, Caleb." I'm sorry it took me so long. He stared at me, his eyes shining, and then he pulled me into his arms, his kiss fierce and forgiving. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the world fading away. I didn't know what came next, how we'd navigate the firm, the rumors, the future. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I'd found my truth, and it was him. We moved to Portland together, starting fresh. I left Sterling and Pratt, taking a job at a smaller firm that valued who I was. Caleb's nonprofit thrived, and I started writing that book, pouring my story into pages that felt like freedom. The kids at the center became our family, their courage a reminder of what we'd fought for. Love wasn't easy, it was messy, terrifying, beautiful, but it was ours, and that was enough.